I came down like a short distance to the ground. I don't know how far it was. Maybe, I don't know if it was a foot, my feet came down like a foot to the ground. But as they were coming down to the ground, I was also feeling the warmth of the day, you know. And so it's like, and then as I felt the warmth of the day, then my feet came to rest on the ground. So it's like, it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And that is spirit. That is spiritual. There are a lot of cheap imitations that people come up with in books, and you have to pay dollars for those books. They're worthless. The spirit is about the verb aspect of God. You know, that's how things come into and go out of existence by being transformed into spirit. It's like, you become transformed into an atmosphere. And, how do you do it? You love God. And, what's the purpose of life, really? What is anybody's life about? It's about your love for other people. That's what it is, you know. And you love God because you only have that love for other people because God is that verb. God is love. God is power of that continuum that brings things into existence. So, my advice to you is give up on belief. God is only going to lead you to the unbelievable. You know what I mean? So don't expect belief. Seek knowledge. Seek to know God. Seek to know the verb, whatever the verb is. It's like, Yehoshua. That's that's his name, Jesus, right? Yeshua means deliverance. But, in the milder speaking of the rabbis, deliverance is God's help. You know, it's the verb that happens to you, you know, his help. You could ask to be moved, or like, my little thing about the dream, you know, you could ask for a dream and, you could make it much more important than I did, you know, you have your own dream. Or you might, have real nerve and ask for an occult communication, some invisible speaking of God, right? It takes real nerve for that. You can imagine what a overwhelming thing it was to hear the Ten Commandments, spoken by God. Now they did see things. They saw the mountain smoking and there was fire and stuff. But, that maybe that's the mountain's reaction, right? But they heard God, you know. But you could ask God for a dream or a vision, you know. It just depends on how, do you really take experience seriously enough to do any of this? You know? I mean, life is about experience, you know. And, in experience, you discover love, something about love. I don't think any of us knows the full scope of it, of love. But in terms of God, love is a power. It's a verb. It's what makes things happen. It's what makes everything exist. It's like God created through a loving power. It's like that's how things are. That's how things exist. It's like I don't know. Well, anyway, so what was I saying? Don't believe anything. I don't know. It's just when you actually, when God does act, and it's unbelievable. It really is. And I mean, if God sent you from wherever you are in England to Chicago, and the wind was blowing, and you had to get on the phone to an airline because you didn't have the nerve to ask to be sent back, you wanted to fly back on a jet, I wouldn't blame you for not believing. It's unbelievable, you know. But that's what God does. He does things like that. So it's about experience. It's about love. Do you love experience? Would you love a new experience? That's all it is. That's all life is about. And I mean, if you love people, explain it to God once you get to know Him. Explain to God what love you found in life. And I don't know, whatever it is. If there's some difficulty that has to be overcome, God is not only an information source. He's powerful. So anyway. And, I could go on, really. I mean, I think I about said everything I can say about God. And people do. They make a lot of remarks about God. I just went to a Unitarian service this morning. And this boy, he, through a very vulgar interpretation, a very vulgar understanding of the story of Adam and Eve, he had all kinds of rules and regulations and complaints about God himself. You know what I mean? Who can do that? What sense does that make? I mean, if you know God through experience, if you have been moved from one place to another place, and you sprung forth from the atmosphere on a bright sunny day, you know God. You're His offspring. But it's not that you know a lot about God. You don't. You don't know a lot about God. Even if you're the Son of God, you don't, or a Son of God, a child of God. And let me be clear about this. Jesus called everyone to be children of God. It was, it's the miracle of His name, Yehoshua. The the te- the eternal name of God, the Tetragrammaton, right, delivers us, delivered by God. It's in the greatest gospel for all these comings and goings is the Gospel of John. You know, you just study things, in the Gospel of John because it says in the beginning of, I think it's John 1:12, something like that. It says that He, gave man the ability or the power or the grace to be born of God. God who is spirit, And really, spirit is a dynamic thing. It's not, it's not a special, it's not metaphors and logic and poetry and things like that. It's the ultimate substance of anything you've seen in life, any object, anything. It's the ultimate substance of the atmosphere, of sunlight, it's the ultimate substance of a physical thing, material thing, a hard, solid thing, anything. Because spiritually, anything can come and go. It's like, if you like a Star Trek kind of prayer, let's say, astronomy teachers, scientists, observers of the solar system say, well, we had a flare about, 1/3 the diameter, 1/3 the circumference of the sun. As a flare blew off, it's going to explode, right? And if it explodes, the planets will be absorbed, whatever. Well, there's such a thing as praying, praying for that verb, right? Buckminster Fuller, in his, naive genius, he said, spaceship Earth. Well, it would only take like the agreement of two righteous people, and the earth could be moved by God to another